Oh, wow.
This is a land that remembers the dead. Beneath the sun-scorched sands of Giza, the pyramids rise like eternal sentinels, guarding secrets time forgot.
In the shadow of the pyramids, archaeologists make an extraordinary discovery.
They were built to house the mighty kings who claimed to become gods, and yet their bodies have vanished. No bones, no coffins, just empty chambers echoing with silence.
The chamber has been empty since recorded history.
Who stole the pharaohs from their stone fortresses?
We don't know who carried out this crime, but Mark has a theory about when the robberies took place.
Or were they hidden long ago for reasons far stranger than robbery? Deep beneath the Southern Field, archaeologists have unearthed clues, dusty, golden, and ancient. The chase begins, not for treasure, but for the truth buried with the kings who vanished into myth. The pyramids rise like timeless sentinels on the edge of Cairo, carved from ambition, belief, and the desire to defy death. Towering above the modern city, these three colossal structures, Khufu's Great Pyramid, Khafre's near-equal marvel, and Menkaure's smaller but still commanding tomb, are more than stone. They are the physical echoes of kings who once ruled Egypt and believed they would live forever. Each was built not just as a resting place, but as a sacred engine of transformation. Crafted with unmatched precision, the pyramids were designed to guard both body and soul, ensuring the pharaoh's passage into the afterlife. Inside, hidden corridors once cradled treasures, sacred texts, and the mummified remains of the rulers who commissioned them. Sealed beneath granite blocks, entombed within millions of pounds of stone, these god kings were meant to sleep undisturbed through eternity. But somewhere along the path of time, something went terribly wrong. Today, the pyramids still stand in defiance of centuries, but the kings they were built to protect are gone. Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure, three of the most powerful men in history, have vanished without a trace. No mummies, no coffins, no royal funerary treasures, just empty chambers and endless speculation. It's one of archaeology's greatest riddles. Were their tombs looted in ancient times, their bodies stolen and scattered? Or could they have been removed and reburied by later Egyptians, hidden away to protect them from desecration? Some even wonder if the pharaohs were ever placed inside their pyramids at all. Theories abound, but answers remain buried. To unravel the mystery, we must look beyond the towering monuments themselves. The secrets of the pyramid pharaohs may not lie within the stones they left behind, but in the forgotten sands that surround them. And only by digging into those silent corners of the Giza Plateau can we hope to uncover the fate of Egypt's vanished kings. In ancient Egypt, stealing from the dead wasn't just theft, it was sacrilege, a brutal act against a people who believed death was only the beginning. The pyramid pharaohs built their tombs as eternal sanctuaries, designed to protect their bodies and preserve their souls. Yet somehow they vanished. When Arab explorers entered the Great Pyramid of Khufu in the 9th century, they didn't find treasures or a mummy. They found an empty chamber, no sarcophagus, no king, just silence. The same was true for the pyramids of Khafre and Menkaure. These monumental tombs, some of the most secure structures in human history, had been stripped of their purpose. This wasn't a crime of opportunity, it was methodical. The Great Pyramid was a fortress, its original entrance hidden behind smooth white limestone. Hidden passageways, false tunnels, and granite slabs were installed to stop intruders. Yet robbers somehow bypassed every trap. They didn't waste time searching. They went straight to the heart, straight to the burial chamber. Dr. Mark Lehner, a world authority on pyramid archaeology, believes the robbers had help or knowledge. They may have been workers, insiders who knew the blueprint of the pyramid. Their tunnel didn't just lead somewhere, it led exactly where it needed to. What makes this story even more unsettling is how little was said about it in ancient times. No warnings, no royal decrees, no records of punishment, just silence. As though the greatest desecration of Egypt's sacred kings had been quietly erased from history. The pyramids remain. Their grandeur still commands awe, but their kings are gone, and no one knows how or when. The elaborate systems meant to preserve the pharaohs for eternity failed. Their tombs were breached. Their bodies were stolen or hidden, and the trail went cold. For more than 1,000 years, their disappearance has remained one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in archaeology, a sacred puzzle carved in stone and scattered in silence, A cold case from the ancient world is still waiting for a resolution. South of the towering pyramids, beyond the well-trodden paths and the hum of curious visitors, lies a forgotten stretch of desert, the Southern Field, an expanse of wind, dust, and silence. For centuries, it was dismissed as barren land. No grand monuments marked it, no statues stood guard. It offered nothing to catch the eye or stir imagination. It was just sand. And so, it was left alone. But hidden beneath that quiet surface was something far older, something sacred, waiting to be uncovered. Ashraf Mohi el-Din, director of the Giza Plateau and one of Egypt's most devoted archaeologists,
Is Ashraf Mohi el-Din, the director of the Giza Plateau. Ashraf is a world-famous archaeologist.
decided to look where others had not. For decades, his life had orbited the pyramids. But now, his gaze shifted to this overlooked patch of desert. He assembled a team, over 60 workers, and began an excavation that would last 35 weeks. Not in search of gold or treasure, but in search of truth. Could this forgotten field hold clues to one of Egypt's most haunting mysteries? The missing bodies of the pyramid pharaohs? At first, there was nothing. The team moved sand slowly, layer by layer, truck by truck. The work was grueling. The heat is unrelenting. Still, they kept going. Then, just inches beneath the surface, they struck stone.
Oh wow, it's inscripted stone.
It was a large limestone block, carefully carved and aged by time. On its face, a royal cartouche, the sacred oval used to frame the names of pharaohs. This one bore a powerful name, Khafre.
It's inscribed with the name of the king Khafre, Khafre, the owner of the second pyramid.
The very king who built the second pyramid of Giza, a ruler whose body, like his father Khufu and his son Menkaure, has never been found. This wasn't debris, this was a sign. To Ashraf, it was confirmation that the Southern Field was no ordinary stretch of land. It had been part of something significant, perhaps even royal. The desert had kept its secret well, but now it was beginning to speak. Could this site be connected to the pyramid builders themselves? Could the answers to their fate lie just below the surface? Ashraf's discovery didn't solve the mystery, but it changed everything. The Southern Field was no longer forgotten. It had become the newest chapter in a story 4.5 millennia in the making. The silence of the Southern Field was broken not by triumph, but by quiet wonder. As Ashraf and his team dug deeper into the sun-baked earth, layer by layer, the sands gave way to something astonishing, an ancient necropolis hidden beneath the desert for thousands of years. What they uncovered wasn't scattered or chaotic. It was deliberate. They found shafts, dozens of them, cut straight into the limestone bedrock. Some were empty, others incomplete, and many remained sealed, untouched since the day they were closed. It soon became clear, this was not an accidental graveyard. This was a carefully constructed burial site, planned with precision and purpose. Inside the shafts, history began to whisper. Torn linen bandages hinted at mummified bodies that had once rested peacefully. Delicate jars, their contents long evaporated, still held echoes of beer, milk, honey, and cheese, offerings for the dead to carry into the next world. Human remains surfaced, bones, cracked skulls, even the tiny skeleton of a baby still wrapped in traces of a funerary mask, a moment of heartbreak preserved in dust. Then something glittered, a coffin, shattered and incomplete, but unmistakably royal in nature. It was wrapped in golden sheets, thin and radiant even under centuries of sand. A skull peeked out, hair still clinging to its surface, a finger covered in gold. Whoever this person was, they had not been forgotten. Their burial was rich with symbolism, reverence, and status. More tombs appeared too, some built with mud brick. One chamber stood out. The walls were etched with inscriptions still sharp after 4,500 years. Among the names, one reappeared, Khafre. But this was not his tomb.
Khafre. It was the same cartouche in the block.
It belonged to a priest, a devoted servant who once worked in the king's temple, offering prayers for his divine afterlife. Each discovery layered the story deeper. The Southern Field wasn't just a cemetery, it was a sacred quarter of Giza, a resting place for those who lived in service to the gods and kings, a place of worship and remembrance. But with every new burial uncovered, a more urgent question emerged. If all of these officials and servants were buried with such care, where are the kings they served? As Ashraf's team delved deeper into the sand-choked shafts of the Southern Field, a remarkable theory began to rise from the dust, one that challenged everything we thought we knew about the missing pharaohs of Giza. What if Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure were never truly lost? What if they had been deliberately moved? The idea may seem radical, but history offers precedent. Ancient Egypt was no stranger to tomb robbery. For thousands of years, looters plundered sacred burial sites, stripping them of gold, jewels, and sacred relics. Even the most fortified tombs, designed with traps, false passageways, and massive granite seals, could not protect their royal dead from the long reach of human greed. But the story doesn't end there. In the New Kingdom, centuries after the pyramids were constructed, Egyptian priests and officials took extraordinary steps to protect what remained of their sacred legacy. As tomb after tomb was defiled, they responded not with despair, but with action. Royal mummies, including those of powerful kings like Ramesses III and Thutmose II, were secretly relocated. Stripped of wealth, rewrapped with care, and buried in hidden mass graves,
In order to safeguard the royal mummies, they were moved, rewrapped, and buried together in an unmarked tomb.
these pharaohs were moved not out of disrespect, but to shield them from further violation. Their new tombs were modest, their resting places obscure, but their identities in many cases were preserved. Could the same quiet heroism have occurred during the late period, long after the age of the pyramids had ended? Now first, like always, be sure to hit the like button down below. It helps us out tremendously with the reach of this video. Thank you. A curious discovery within Menkaure's pyramid adds weight to the possibility. In 1837, explorers unearthed a wooden coffin shaped like a human form, marked with Menkaure's name, and inscribed with blessings to guide him through the afterlife. But the coffin didn't match the time of the king's original burial. It had been made more than 2,000 years later, during the late period. The implications are stunning. This wasn't the original sarcophagus. It was a replacement, a gesture of reverence, not robbery. A sign that someone, perhaps a group of late-period Egyptians, had returned to the defiled pyramid and chosen to restore the king's dignity. They created a new coffin, placed it inside the ancient tomb, and perhaps even reburied what remained of Menkaure's body. This theory aligns eerily well with what's being found in the Southern Field today. Many of the coffins unearthed here match the style of Menkaure's wooden sarcophagus, painted, human-shaped, and crafted during the late period. These were not placed randomly. They rest atop older tombs from the Old Kingdom, carefully positioned with purpose. It suggests a dual story of those buried anew and those honored once more. If late-period Egyptians revered the pyramid pharaohs as gods, as evidence suggests, then they may have seen it as their duty to protect them, to rewrap their bones, to house them once again in sacred soil. Could the Southern Field be more than a forgotten cemetery? Could it be the secret resting place of Egypt's greatest kings, hidden not by thieves, but preserved by their faithful descendants? To the ancient Egyptians, death was not a conclusion. It was a passage into transformation. The moment a pharaoh died, he did not simply leave this world behind. He ascended. In life, he ruled over the fertile Nile Valley, commanding armies and shaping nations. In death, he crossed into the divine, becoming a god who ruled the afterlife. The pyramids were not mere tombs, they were celestial launch pads, carefully engineered portals meant to guide the soul toward immortality. Every stone, every corridor, every chamber was part of a spiritual machine designed to create a god. Centuries passed, dynasties crumbled, and new rulers came and went. But the names of the pyramid builders, Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure, did not fade. Even 2,000 years after their reigns, they still echoed in the hearts of a very different Egypt. By the late period, the country was under siege, invaded, fractured, and uncertain of its future. In that chaos, the Egyptians did what many civilizations do when the present grows dark. They turned to the past for light. To the late period Egyptians, the Great Pyramid pharaohs were not just historical figures. They were gods, symbols of strength, of unity, of divine order. They were the embodiment of a golden age. And in times of uncertainty, their spiritual power offered hope. These later Egyptians longed to be near them, not just in spirit, but in death. They buried themselves in the southern field, in the shadow of the pyramids, believing that proximity to such divine beings might grant them protection in the afterlife. That belief is now written into the landscape. Ashraf's team has found late-period coffins nestled directly on top of Old Kingdom tombs. Graves from different eras lie almost on top of one another, separated by 2,000 years, but tied together by shared faith. They weren't disturbing the old burials. They were seeking blessings from them. Just outside Giza, at the necropolis of Saqqara, Dr. Colleen Darnell examines another piece of this spiritual puzzle. Inside the pyramid of King Unas, who ruled shortly after the builders of Giza, the walls are covered with pyramid texts. These are not decorations, they are spells, carefully written instructions to guide the dead pharaoh toward godhood. "You have not gone away dead," one spell reads. "You have gone away alive." These texts laid the foundation for Egypt's belief that the dead could ascend. No such texts survive inside the Great Pyramids, but scholars believe they may have once existed on papyrus, buried with the kings, and lost over time. What matters most is the shared intention. The pyramids weren't meant to guard death. They were meant to deliver resurrection. So if late-period Egyptians found the defiled remains of their ancient gods, they wouldn't have left them broken. They would have acted not out of duty, but out of reverence. They would have rewrapped them, reburied them, and protected them once more. Not to preserve the past, but to keep their gods alive. Not every tomb in the southern field holds the grandeur of kings or the names of gods. Some discoveries speak in softer tones, whispers of ordinary lives lived under the shadow of colossal monuments. These finds don't rewrite history, but they illuminate it. They remind us that behind the grandeur of the pyramids stood generations of people whose stories were quieter, but no less meaningful. As Ashraf's excavation team pushed deeper into the ancient sands, one particular coffin stood out. It did not belong to royalty or to a high priest. It belonged to a young woman. Her golden funerary mask had crumbled with age, yet her remains were hauntingly well preserved. Strands of dark hair still clung to her linen wrappings, as if time itself had been too respectful to disturb her. Dr. Amira Shaheen, a forensic expert in ancient human remains, was called in to examine the body. What she found was extraordinary. Above the woman's right eye was a clean, perfectly rounded hole in her skull. This wasn't the result of trauma or violence. The edges were smooth. The surrounding bone had begun to heal. This woman had undergone surgery. Thousands of years ago, long before the tools of modern medicine, an Egyptian physician had performed a cranial operation, most likely to relieve pressure or treat an unknown illness. And she survived, if only for a while. It's a rare but powerful glimpse into how this civilization not only honored the dead, but also fought to heal the living. Ancient Egypt was not just a land of death rituals. It was a land of early science, of trial and compassion. Nearby, in another shaft, Ashraf made a discovery that moved him deeply: the bones of a tiny infant, laid to rest with care. A fragile funerary mask lay beside the small skeleton. In all his years of excavation, he had never found a child buried in such a way here. The gesture was simple but sacred. Even the briefest of lives was given dignity in death. These are not the pharaohs we set out to find, but these lives too were touched by the beliefs, fears, and hopes of ancient Egypt. The Southern Field is not merely a graveyard of elites. It is a mosaic of human experience. Each tomb, each body, each artifact tells us that beneath the grandeur of empire were people who felt, suffered, healed, and loved. And so, we ask again, if such care was given to these forgotten souls, might the kings themselves lie hidden among them, resting quietly, waiting to be found. Deep within the pyramid of Menkaure, the smallest yet still towering monument on the Giza Plateau, a curious discovery came to light. It was 1837 when a team of early explorers dug through centuries of packed sand and stone, descending into the ancient burial chamber. What they found wasn't gold nor the linen-wrapped body of a long-dead king. Instead, resting in the silent darkness was a coffin, wooden, modest, and carved in the shape of a human form. It bore an inscription, and the message was unmistakable. The name etched into the coffin was Menkaure, grandson of Khufu, builder of the third pyramid, and once ruler of all Egypt. The text referred to him as Osiris, Lord of the Underworld, affirming his divine status in the afterlife. It was not just a nameplate, it was a proclamation of royal identity and eternal reign. And yet, something about the coffin didn't add up. It was too new, not freshly made, but far too recent to belong to a king who had died around 2500 BCE. The wood, the design, the style of the decoration, all of it screamed a much later date. In fact, experts placed it nearly 2,000 years after Menkaure's actual lifetime. It didn't belong to the Old Kingdom at all. It was a product of the late period, when Egypt was struggling to hold on to its identity amid foreign invasions and fading dynasties. That contradiction turned the coffin from a curiosity into a mystery. Dr. Mark Lehner, one of the world's foremost pyramid archaeologists, examined a detailed sketch of the coffin made shortly after its discovery. He saw in its curves and carvings a message not of deception, but of devotion. The presence of such a coffin inside Menkaure's pyramid could only mean one thing. Someone, long after the pyramid had been sealed and perhaps looted, had returned. They hadn't come to steal. They had come to restore. The theory is daring but compelling. During the late period, Egyptians looked back at their ancient past with awe. They idolized the pyramid pharaohs, believing them to be gods who walked the earth. In troubled times, they reached for old strength. And if they found that the tomb of Menkaure had been broken, his mummy taken, his original sarcophagus lost, they may have done the only thing they could: bury him again, not as a reconstruction, but as an act of resurrection. The wooden coffin, though empty when found, becomes something more than evidence of loss. It becomes a symbol of reverence, of spiritual repair, a second funeral, a new beginning, a king re-enthroned, not in life, but in death. No one knows what happened to the body. If it ever rested inside that coffin, it's gone now. But the object remains, echoing across the centuries. It tells us that the story of Menkaure didn't end in looting. It continued through remembrance, through a people who dared to rewrite loss into legacy and silence into sacredness. The sands haven't stopped speaking. With every brushstroke, every careful dig, the Southern Field slowly gives up pieces of its long-buried story. For weeks, under the relentless Egyptian sun, Ashraf and his team have worked tirelessly, sifting through layers of time, inch by inch, in search of something lost. They are not chasing gold. They are searching for history's most elusive remains, the missing mummies of the pyramid pharaohs. Khufu, Khafre, Menkaure, kings who built monuments to their own immortality, yet whose bodies have never been found. There are no guarantees in archaeology, no promise that each shovel of earth will bring them closer to answers. But still, they dig, they hope. Every shaft the team opens holds a unique weight, a tension that hangs in the air. Some are narrow, unfinished tunnels. Others are deep, carved with purpose and precision. Many are simple graves for ordinary people, buried with a handful of items: a clay jar, a scrap of linen, a token of love. And yet others are more ornate. Painted coffins appear, decorated with sacred symbols and protective spells meant to guide the dead safely into the afterlife. These burials are quiet voices from the past, whispering stories of those who once walked the desert under the same sun. Some tombs remain sealed. Large stone blocks, untouched for thousands of years, still guard their secrets. When Ashraf's team pries them loose, time seems to pause. Could this be the one? Could this be the hidden resting place of a king? Inside one burial, they find a young man, barely out of adolescence. There's no gold, no treasure, just the solemn dignity of a life once lived. In another, a woman lies carefully wrapped in linen, her coffin adorned with painted eyes and prayers. Her name is lost, but the devotion in her burial is clear. These are not the rulers of Egypt, but they lived in the shadows of pyramids, in a society that revered its dead. Each artifact, each fragment, is documented with care. The process is slow, almost meditative. Dust rises, the sun beats down, yet Ashraf remains undeterred. He believes the answer is near, maybe just beyond the next shaft, beneath a few more feet of ancient soil. One more sealed chamber could change everything. The pharaohs are still missing. But the theory gaining ground isn't that they vanished without a trace, but that they were hidden, intentionally, reverently, moved not by looters, but by later Egyptians who believed in their divinity and sought to protect them anew. This is not just a hunt for bodies. It's a quest for understanding, because in their absence, the pyramid pharaohs still speak, and if Ashraf keeps digging, their silence might finally break. Beneath the silent watch of Egypt's great pyramids, a riddle endures. Egyptian kings who built monuments meant to last forever vanished. Their tombs still tower above the sands, their names etched in stone, but their bodies have never been found. For thousands of years, they've remained missing, their fate unknown. But now, something is changing. In the Southern Field, a forgotten stretch of desert near the pyramids, the past is slowly resurfacing. Ashraf and his team have uncovered fragments of an ancient story, a limestone block bearing a king's name, a shattered golden coffin, a forgotten priest's tomb, and coffins placed centuries after the pyramids were built. These aren't random discoveries. They hint at something greater, a second burial, an act of devotion, perhaps even a sacred rescue. Were the mummies moved to protect them from thieves? Are they still buried somewhere nearby, hidden with care and reverence? The mystery deepens with each find, and though the kings remain lost, their presence lingers in the dust, in the stone, in the hearts of those still searching. Someday soon, the desert may give up its final secret, and when it does, the world will be watching.